Alhaji Maulvi Bin Salih, thank you for talking to JoyNews. Just last year, a group of human rights experts working with the United Nations raised concerns about religious discrimination against Ahmadiyya Muslims around the world, and that there's a need for international attention to some of your concerns in the community. Fast forward this year, we're surprised to know that in what is known as a religiously coherent country such as Ghana, you are still raising concerns about how some Muslims, most especially young girls practicing your faith, are not allowed to do so freely here in the country. How worried are you as the Ahmadiyya Muslim mission here in Ghana about religious discrimination?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين خاتم الأنبياء Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Worried, yes, we are. And our predecessors were equally worried. And if nothing is done about it, those who will come after it will also continue to worry. And at the end of the day, possibly, anything happening can be anyone's guess. To start with, education, literacy to start with, was introduced into this country called Ghana by Muslim clerics.
Really?
Yeah. Prior to the coming of the colonial rule, the Muslim clerics had established madrasas in Salaga, Wa, Kitakrachi, and Kumasi, to mention only these few. And not only that, the very first school for learning to read and write was established by Muslim clerics, not only in the country but also in Ashanti. The very first school was established by these Muslim clerics in Kumasi. And the Asante Hine of that time sent a student to that school. But more interestingly, the earliest records that you can find anywhere in the world on the Ashanti Kingdom, you would find them in Jula and Arabic. They were written by the Muslim clerics of that time because they were the secretaries to the Asante Hene's palace. At that time, literacy was unknown to anybody in Ashanti.
And you're sure about this, that this is
documented? I'm very sure about it. It's documented. And anybody can take it, try to dig back into the history of Asante Kingdom and see where they can get the latest, the earliest history about Asante Kingdom prior to the coming of the colonial rule. Number two, worried because our predecessors were worried because even though we started this thing in this country, when the colonial administration set in, they teamed up with the Christian organizations. They set up schools. And the northern part of Ghana, which was predominantly Muslim area, also had some of these schools.
Right.
Now, what our predecessors found was that the Muslim parents sent their children to these schools, which were predominantly boarding schools. You send your child to the school, his name is Yahya, which is a Muslim name. Or you send your child whose name is Ibrahim, which is a Muslim name. By the time he returns home for the first term holidays, they have changed his name to John or Abraham. And not only that, by the time he returned or she returned home during the first holidays, you would find that their whole mannerism has changed into Christian mannerism. Instead of saying good God or Subhanallah, you say, oh Christ, oh Jesus Christ, and so on and so forth. So our predecessors became alarmed, and they concluded that the purpose of establishing these schools was meant for Christianizing the Muslim children, and therefore they decided not to send their children to schools anymore. It is the reason why it is wrongly peddled throughout the country that Muslims are averse to education, and they cite what happened in the past where Muslim parents removed their children from school. This was the reason why these things happened.
So you feel that it's a colonial problem that has lingered until now?
If colonial come Christian problem, and that same colonial come Christian problem is resurfacing in Ghana in a different form.
And Amir, many are asking for the evidence. Where is that evidence to indeed suggest that there's religious discrimination? What evidence do you have as the Ahmadiyya Muslim mission?
There is no religious discrimination in Ghana. That's not what I'm saying.
Right. But you say that young girls, for instance, are not allowed to practice their faith in schools,
when you make a sweeping statement that there is religious discrimination in Ghana, it is far-fetched. There is no religious discrimination in Ghana.
Right.
Religious discrimination in Ghana has only surfaced in one corner and one angle of the life of the Ghanaian, which is in the field of education.
Right.
And to some extent in the field of medical health.
And that's why you're being subjected to the fact that you need, as a community, to provide the clear and ample evidence for us to accept
the very clean, clear, ample evidence is known to you, as you sit here yourself, that in the Wesley Senior High School in Cape Coast recently, Muslim children were barred from saying Salat. They were prevented from even carrying copies of the Holy Quran with them. Much less talk of allowing them to even read and study that Holy Quran, and so on and so forth. It raised a lot of hue and cry in this country. And you know, just as many others know, that Christian clerics came out with worse statements, inflammatory statements, which were full of discrimination against Muslims once the field of education and educational institutions was concerned. It's not to the people of all this country. It's not only the Muslims that will come with the proof. You know it.
What have you done about it?
Go back to your documents. As a television station, you certainly have televised some of those things.
Since you are worried, I'm interested in some of the remedial steps that you've taken. What steps have you taken? Have you engaged the education ministry here in Ghana on this?
Yes, we have engaged the Ministry of Education, and it's not only now, it was immediately this thing happened, and we've been making follow-ups to get what the Ministry of Education is doing about it. And for your good information, since that time, how many years today, there is no solution in sight. Because the referees have so far not been able to come out to tell us anything. Because we need to have a smooth playing ground. This is not a theocracy. We are running a democracy. And in a democracy, religion should not be seen to be dictating something like admission to schools.
I mean, when you're referring to the referee, are you talking about the fact that
the Ministry of Education,
some government actors,
the Ministry of Education, not government actors,
are not being
sweeping statements are very dangerous.
Okay, so you want to be specific?
Yes,
that the Ministry of Education is not
because
active.
What some of the Christian actors, particularly those involved with that school at Cape Coast, what they came out to say was this: that when this thing happened, they came to an understanding with the Ministry of Education. They came out with a draft, and the understanding was that both of them will study that draft and come back together with their suggestions so that they finally come out with a final copy. But the Christian aspect of it, the clerics, was this: that the Ministry of Education stabbed them at the back, that the ministry did not adhere to this gentlemanly agreement, and that instead of them meeting again to bring out their proposals to come with a final copy, the ministry didn't wait, but rather published the rough copy which they presented for the study, which obviously did not carry the views of the Christian clerics. So, what does it mean then to you? And they also reacted. And their explanation for reaction was this: that it's because the Minister of Education did not act faithfully.
I want to go back to what you said earlier. You laid the foundation quite fairly that when the Western colonizers came in, they partnered with some of our locals to establish schools, which means that some of the missionary schools, or in fact most of them, do not have Muslim orientations. They are mostly for Orthodox churches in Christendom.
Not most of them, all of them.
Almost all of them. So that establishes the fact that these educational institutions also do have a subtle mission, and that is to also inculcate some sort of their beliefs into the young ones who are coming into the institutions. So if that's the case, why blame the Education Ministry of failing to do something about it?
Yes. So because if you put up a seminary, it is meant for your religious purposes. But if you put up a public school, it is meant for public consumption. And by public consumption here, you are taking into consideration the fact that you live in a country which is multicultural, multi-religious, and so on and so forth. So you can decide to call your school a seminary, close doors. But once it becomes a public school, you do not have the right to bring indoctrination to bear on the students of that school.
That's a controversial
No, take it easy. Let it be as controversial as you would see it. Yeah. But you do not have the right at that point to bring that to bear on the students, because it is a public school. And as a public school, children come from various backgrounds. There are certain issues that are across board. Morality is across board. If we teach morality in schools, and morality is universal. What the Chinese considers to be moral, the Germans also sees that as a moral, just as we the Africans see it as moral. So they are universal. You know, universal morals can be taught in schools, but indoctrination should not be part of that.
And what is indoctrination to you?
Indoctrination is to be skewed towards one side, singing and beautifying the teachings of one religion as against other religions, and insisting that the best way to go is this one.
Aside the Wesley Girls case, which other institution are you able to readily point to? Some, in fact, go ahead to say, well, it's more about your problem because in your institutions, for instance, you're not even open to the idea of having Christians study in Muslim schools.
You are hitting a very wrong chord in which many Ghanaians will prove you wrong.
Okay.
Because Muslim schools, Ahmadiyya Muslim schools, are the schools in this country which are known by each and every Tom, Dick, and Harry to be very open, non-doctrinational, do not force Christians to study Islam, do not force Christians to go to say prayers the Muslim way. Even in morning assemblies, Christians are allowed to say the Lord's Prayer, and the Muslims are allowed to say the Muslim prayer. So they do two prayers, which means it's taking everybody on board. And as far as curriculum is concerned, you wouldn't find anybody who would teach lessons in an indoctrinated way. You would not find anybody forcing a Christian not to have a Bible. If you go to the prospectus of G.I. Ahmadiyya Secondary School, Kumasi, one of the things that every student is required to bring is either a Bible or the Holy Quran, which is to say that depending on your belief, if it is the Quran, if you are a Muslim, you need Quran to read to enhance your spirituality. If you are a Christian, you need a Bible to read from time to time to enhance your spirituality. And therefore, everybody is brought on board. And this school is not skewed towards any particular
What's the recommendation of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Mission to ending all forms of discrimination in these schools?
Well, my suggestion is that the guiding rules and regulations should be brought out to guide the way we run public schools. Unless and until there are clear-cut rules and regulations, we will continue to have problems. For instance, if it is accepted that this is a Christian school, it is not a public school, and it's made known that every student going to that school will have to go to the church to worship on Sundays. And it becomes acceptable in this country by the authorities, it will be your duty as a Muslim child, and you only have yourself to blame if, after this declaration, you still send your child to that school. And that is the way forward. Unless and until that is done. And so far, and as far as you accept your school to be a public school, please, let it, for all purposes, remain a public school. Public school means everybody is accepted and everybody is taken on board.
The fear is, if we go on that tangent, you may be forcing the Orthodox churches to reclaim the institutions that they've freely giving out to the Ministry of Education. And that may move us into a sphere where we'll be doing targeted or targeting education, if I should call it that way, where there'll be largely exclusion all across this country. You do agree that some of these Christian schools are found in remote areas, areas where you don't even have a single public school. We could be in a crisis, isn't it?
you probably are concluding that there are no Muslim schools in deprived areas. There certainly are Muslim schools.
But if you compare the numbers,
comparatively, when did the Christians start enforcing the educational system on the people as compared to when the playing field was open for Muslims also to participate? So the age is also taken into consideration. But I, for one, I'm not against the Christians who want to take their schools out of the public system. I don't have anything against it.
Right.
Let them do it. And when they take their school out of the public system, I know that this is a Christian school. Therefore, the Christian ethics are bound to prevail there. Therefore, if I'm sending my child there, I expect that my child should conform to whatever he is told in the school. And I don't see how it can happen. After all, it is the duty of the state to provide schools, education for the people of the country. It is not the duty of any religious body to provide these schools. Religious bodies only come to complement. In a situation where a government is unable to provide enough educational institutions for the populace, would mean that that government has failed and failed drastically. And in fact, it will also mean that they've not been able to determine their priorities. There should, under no reason, under no circumstances, should Ghana be at the disposal of any Christian religion. Sorry, not Christian religion,
right.
Any religion.
Right.
So that if that religion dominates in any sector, and they decide to pull a first one on the government, and then the whole country crumbles, it would mean that the government has failed. And government is to blame for that kind of a situation. I therefore have no objection.
Right.
If the Christians would want to take back their school, the understanding was not with me. It was with the government, it was faulty. So they go back to the table. If they decide to take their school and the government agrees, fair enough. I will have no objection.
Beyond education, the health sector, and even back to education, the subject matter of the wearing of the hijab, it's something that's affected most Muslim girls who are also practicing other professions such as nursing.
Yeah, but
they are not, for instance,
why should it,
not allowed to wear the hijab. It's been a concern for your group.
Listen
right?
to me. In the first place, it's hypocritical for anybody to suggest that hijab should not be worn. Tell me any Christian denomination you can think of in this world that started right from its beginning, and the nuns were not wearing hijab. Mention any single one. Is it the Catholics? Is it the Presbyterians, Methodists, or what have you? They've all worn the hijab.
I guess the sense of fashion may be different.
Fashion is something else. Let it be different. But the hijab is hijab. And the definition is hijab is what I'm taking into consideration. That all of them, right from the beginning, if now they are shying away from it and they want to throw it away, that is their own cup of tea. But I'm saying that historically, documentarily, there isn't any single Christian denomination in this country, right from the beginning, whose nuns, sisters, and so forth did not wear the hijab. And the Catholic mothers, sisters, on what have you today, till date they still wear the hijab. So what is it?
But what do you sense is the problem?
The sense is we are being hypocritical, unnecessarily hypocritical about nothing, and unnecessarily trying to create a situation that will bring about destabilizing the equilibrium of the country. Because for you to say that a nurse who wears a hijab in a hospital scares the patients.
Is that what you're told sometimes from the reports that you have?
I can produce a letter to you. If I knew you'd bring, I would have printed a copy out for you.
We'll definitely get that after the conversation.
I can produce that copy for you, in which the Ministry of Education insisted that Ministry of Health insisted that the Muslim nurses should be allowed to wear their hijab in hospitals, in wards, and so on and so forth. And an official letter from the Catholic Mission written out to that minister mentions that they cannot allow it because some of these hijab wearers can scare their patients with the hijab. I'm telling you of a letter, I have a copy and I can give it to you.
And the word is scare?
Of course, that's what I'm saying. Even worse, I don't want to mention them so that I look listen. When you read it, if I give you read it, you will see what I'm talking of. So what is all this about? I'm telling you of something. I have a letter, and it was not written to me. It was written to the Ministry of Education. Sorry, was it Ministry of Education?
Okay, so that will be health as well.
Health.
In respect of the nurses. But in respect of the students.
In respect of the directives that were given them.
Right.
You get me? So, if a Christian organization writes to the Ministry of Health that in their hospitals the hijab should not be worn, is it far-fetched for that same organization to say that in their schools, Muslim ladies, girls should not be allowed to wear the hijab? I'm asking you.
Let's try and hazard a guess as to what may be the source of this problem, Emir. Some say we should go back to look at Ghana's demographics in terms of our population size and the dynamics within it. Over 70% of the population, according to the Ghana Statistical Service, subscribe to the Christian faith. That puts them in the majority as compared to those who practice the Muslim faith, under 30% by going by the Ghana Statistical Service figures. That could be the source of our problems, isn't it? You are wrong. The fact that you respectfully are in the minority. Could that not be the case? You are
totally wrong, 100% wrong. Because demographics is not the issue. The issue is in the system of governance that we have decided for ourselves as an independent country. Not demographics. We have decided to be a democracy and not a what? Theocracy. In a theocracy, yes, a theocracy can only work where a certain religious body numerically overwhelms every other person. And you want, therefore, to put theocracy into play. We have not been forced. We have prepared a constitution to govern this country. And in that constitution, we have declared that we are a democracy. For goodness sake, what is a democracy? Come on. Democracy accepts all, natures each and everything, for as long as you do not go against the rules of the state.
Yeah.
And it's clearly mentioned in our constitution, freedom of expression, freedom of worship, freedom of expression of religion.
But you don't want to, of course, be flippant about the facts of the figures and the numbers. Social interactions will take place. If we're to go by the numbers, it should matter.
You see, right. When you are discussing an issue, you don't just take Ghana as an island.
Right.
You just see Ghana as a dot within the global picture. But whatever affects that dot has a telling effect on the remaining globe. What I'm trying to tell you is this, that that is, excuse me to say, inward, looking Ghana as a separate entity, which it cannot. Ghana is a member of the Community of Nations. Just as you have Ghana,
right,
the majority of the people may be Christians. There are many other countries where the majority of the people are not Christians but other religious bodies. You do not have the statistics as you set down. And therefore, if you should decide
right,
that wherever the majority belong to this religion or that religion, democracy will be out of contention anymore in the world. And that apart, you would create a chaotic situation in the world. Such a chaotic situation that you will not be able to bear it, and no single person in this world can live comfortably, because we will not be able to tolerate each other. We will be living in countries where superiority and inferiority complex becomes the order of the day.
I mean, what do you fear, and since you're talking about some of them, what do you fear could be the possible implication if we continue on this tangent? You're extremely concerned about
I have told you
what will be the possible impact on our
I have told you
national
that if we
unity
continue
and
on this
progress.
tangent,
Right.
don't forget that Ghana is the most peaceful country within the sub-region. And ask yourself why. The other countries within the sub-region, they have problems. Why? Because of intolerance. When some citizens of our sister countries come to Ghana and they see the collaboration between the Christians and the Muslims, they marvel. They say, "Oh, how are we able to do this?
Right.
We wish we could also do that in our country." You get me? Don't let us look down upon what we have attained. It is because we haven't gotten there that we don't know what we'll regret. We haven't gotten to the final
Are we inching closer to the line?
Pardon me?
Are we getting closer to that line?
Well, it is a natural order that once something is allowed to fester over a period, the outcome is always undesirable, isn't it? I cannot tell when, but I don't hope that this thing will continue in Ghana, because it will be inimical. I mean, it is not the type of thing we need for the growth of this country. Ghana needs everybody on board for us to grow as a country. If we decide to dissect ourselves into compartments, we'll be worse than some of our sister countries.
Indeed, and looking at your mission statement as the Ahmadiyya mission here in Ghana, obviously there's a worldwide movement, obviously. You may have escalated some of these concerns to the international level, drawing attention for a quick response. Have you initiated some of these processes just to ensure that peace festers here in Ghana?
To each and every organization that you can think of in the world, count them.
You have
each and every one, starting from the UNO to the African Union, to the ECOWAS, to the Parliament of Ghana,
right,
and to everybody, all meaningful organizations that you can think of in this world. We have approached each and every one of them, and we've drawn their attention to these things, and we've solicited their help to ensure that Ghana does not degenerate into a situation that we cannot handle, just as we find.
That's how far you've gone on this.
Yeah. That's how far we've gone on it. Because it is a reality. And if it is a reality, why do you sweep it under a carpet? Continue sweeping it under the carpet. But how long will you keep the carpet without changing it? The day you want to change the carpet, you will still find it there, down there. Then you know that after all, you didn't clean it.
I'm interested in exploring what your concerns are to the international community. How urgent would you want a response, and on what terms are you asking for the interventions?
Well, the interventions that we are asking for is, for instance, if you say this is my country and these are my laws, when you declare it, I know that yes, this is your country and those are your laws. If that is unbearable to me, I will not come into your country. Okay? On the other hand, if you declare, I am a democracy, We have everybody into it. It is a zoo or a marketplace. You have men, you have women, you have the poor, you have the rich, you have the young, you have the old, all are accepted. We decide to come together to build a nation. That is the kind of thing that we are asking for. That make your stance clear. Ghana should not declare itself a democracy. Ghana should not have a constitution that addresses the issue of democracy. If we will not be able to abide by the tenets of democracy, we be hypocritical. We should decide what we really want to be. And if at the end of the day, we overwhelmingly think that it is democratic that we want to be, fair enough, let us go the full length. If you would want to declare that you want to be a theocracy, and the Muslims in Ghana feel that, well, they cannot stay under a theocracy, they are free to go out.
Are you beginning to get some response from the international community on this?
Response from international community from this? Yes, of course. There have been so many journals. I mean, the United Nations journals are there. Human rights journals are there. They've written a lot, condemned about so many actions. Well, I'm talking of the world over. I'm not talking of Ghana.
Right, I get it.
I'm not keen on Ghana.
Precisely.
You know, they are there everywhere. It's not unknown. I can give you volumes of reactions from the world, from world organizations about these issues. But it's the same thing. But it's still continuing. How many things hasn't the UNO condemned? The attack, the American attack of Iraq was condemned in a serious manner by the United Nations organization, yet it went on. So, it's the same thing that is happening in the world. So, what do? But our concern should be our small corner, to clean it well, clean it up. If we clean it up, for all you know, others may take a cue from us and start cleaning their own. And gradually, we might have a clean environment to live in.
I'm sure that, and I see pictures of your spiritual leaders here in the room, and I'll make it Mashoud for short, is your leader. I'm sure that you've had interactions with him on this. How concerned is the international community of the Ahmadiyya Muslim mission about what's happening here in the country? I'm just wondering what the mood is.
The mood of that, I represent Ahmadiyya the world over in Ghana.
Right.
I'm the direct representative of the world head and spiritual leader of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community worldwide. I'm his direct representative here. I am his mouthpiece in Ghana. So my mood is the mood of the international Ahmadiyya the world over. And what I say officially is what is the stance in principle of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community throughout the world, except that you want something else. And I wouldn't come out to make a statement which does not conform to the international, principle of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community worldwide.
Right. And Amir, I need to do some self-introspection, if you allow me to.
Feel free.
Because some believe that, for instance, even within your community itself and the general practice of Islam, you are battling with challenges of division. Some, for instance, and respectfully I would have to refer to that, believe that even your practice of the faith is not real Islam. I'm sure that you've heard some of these comments before.
Yes.
So if that comes up, that's a clear case to say, well, if there's some sort of discrimination going on, it starts from within your own house.
No. Are you pretending not to know what has happened in Christendom? Is that why you're pretending not to know? That they have declared each other infidels here and there and so on and so forth. Are you pretending not to know what informed the breakaway of some Christian bodies into smaller groups and then yet smaller groups and so on and so forth?
So it's a universal problem, isn't it?
No, it's not. It's human nature. Human nature, that whatever the human beings are involved, obviously there are bound to be mischievous people among them, and mischief will always play its role one way or the other. And unless and until these challenges are there, will not be able to really reassert ourselves. Challenges are meant for human beings. But that is not what we are discussing.
Right.
If anybody says Ahmadis are not Muslims, our practices are not the practice of Islam in Ghana, fair enough. That is your cup of tea. But you do not have the right to stop me from practicing it that way. That is the bottom line. You can keep whatever belief that you want. I cannot force you not to have it. But the bottom line is that I have a right to condemn your belief, just as you have the right, you think you have the right to condemn mine. But at the end of the day, we live in a democracy, we live under the rule of law. Keep yours, let me keep mine. Don't interfere in mine.
So it's a strict enforcement of the laws that you want to guarantee free and a fair society for everyone to practice?
No, not only the decision of law, but common sense. Common sense and religiosity demands that. Every religion demands that live and let live, except that you can point out a religion to me. Each and every religion accepts it. Jesus Christ, the Bible says, give unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar. Am I right or wrong?
Precisely.
Good. So, that is tolerance. And without it, we cannot live in this world. We'll always be in a chaotic society. If that is what we want, fine.
And let's just look at some of the issues happening in our sub-region. Terrorism is one of them. And even as we speak now, there's the ministerial level of engagements going on called the Accra Initiative. That will be dominating the discussions all throughout the coming month. The belief is that there's a need for interstate, inter-actors collaboration to try and tackle the issue of extremism. And it's become more prevalent in the West Africa sub-region. You're in Ghana, so obviously you should be concerned about this.
Yes.
Engagements are going on.
I am concerned about it.
And I'm sure that the Accra Initiative has been brushed by your office. At least, what's your impression of some of these initiatives?
Let me tell you in principle. Petrol is petrol. You know there's petrol here, don't strike a matchstick. If you strike a matchstick where there's petrol and still pray that God should save you from fire, you are being hypocritical. You are being a hypocrite. Okay? Terrorism. This is to tell you that what affects one corner of the world can have its impression on even remote parts of the world. That's why the saying goes that if you find that your neighbor's house is on fire, please look for a bucket of water near you, close by. Fight that your neighbor's house. Don't say that it's not my house yet. After your neighbor's house, fire has no friend, it will join you. What is terrorism? People are reacting and finding ways and wrong means of doing things by using whatever comes to their mind and to their hold. For instance, Muslims sit down somewhere and they feel they are discriminated. And they go on, agitation. Okay? For those very reasons why they are agitating, then another country ignites the same process. Don't deceive yourself that when that Muslim group, which has already started agitation in that same corner, when they come to realize that that same thing has been ignited in this other country too, the fire would definitely burn us there too.
So what's the point?
The point is not to do it. The point is not to do it. The point is to respect. Let's respect each other. Respect me as a human being, and let me respect you as a human being. Take me for who and what I am. Respect my principles. Let me respect your principles. It's the reason why you and me, and then me and you, we've decided to call ourselves Ghanaians.
Right.
And we've come together to bring out a constitution which will be our guiding principle, which will guide us to live as me and you.
Unfortunately,
at any given point that you go against it, you are creating a problem.
Unfortunately, some of your own members, people who practice your faith, are beginning to use jihad as the reason for which they should go out and be extremists.
Yes.
Uncomfortable as that conversation may be.
Yes.
You know that it's always stared your practice in the face, that when we talk about extremism, people in fact call them jihadists.
And again,
right, you have heard.
And again, let me tell you.
You have heard some of these
again,
expressions.
let me tell you.
So
I hope you are not.
How do we deal with that?
I hope you are not pretending to know about the Crusaders. The Crusades, were they Muslims? They were crusading on the same grounds with the same principles as these people we blame as jihadists are doing. There's no difference between them and the Crusaders of those days.
Are you endorsing extremism?
That's a very big question.
Right.
Extremism is not acceptable to religion. But I'm only telling you that human nature as we are, it is some individual, a group of individuals from among us who for their own parochial purposes, make a wrong use and wrong interpretation of religion to use it to satisfy their own parochial interests. For instance, when you get to know that these people are Muslims, they are attached so much to Islam, what is the way to let them buy into your parochial interest? It is to use the name of Islam to deceive them, to come to think that Islam is under attack, and therefore you are soliciting their help. Once you are emotionally able to win them over, that Islam is under attack, even though you know that it is not, you have a parochial interest, but you know they are soft corner. You want to use that soft corner to get them to help you to do what you want to do. That is what is happening in the world. It is wrong. It is wrong. For instance, the jihadists. No jihadist can give you the reason why he is doing what he is doing. Suicide bombing. Can you cite any portion of the Holy Quran that prescribes suicide bombing? The Quran says that you do not have the right to take life, and that if you take one person's life, it is as if you're taking the life of the whole of mankind. And Islam forbids suicide. Even Muslims, if you commit suicide, will not say the ritual funeral prayer for bury you.
And that's established in your practice?
Yes, of course.
But we are beginning to see that, for instance, the national security is cracking down on some Islam clerics, for instance.
Yes, you know
the Karaga situation.
Yes,
you know too well about.
Come on, you know what you are telling me. We are talking of Ghana. You're talking of Ghana.
Right.
Those Karaga people you're talking of, we know for sure that they came from outside Ghana, not within Ghana.
Yeah, but they're still Muslims.
No, we're talking of the Ghana situation.
Right.
Let's talk Ghana situation. Right. Ghana, we should be happy and grateful to God that we have a country we call Ghana, and that we are able to live so far amicably with respect to each other. If we do not value it, it is then that we run into serious problems. So Ghana is what we are discussing now. Right. We know these things are happening. I did mention to you that our sister countries marvel why and how Ghana is able to live this way, as if it is an island in a troubled world. You get me? Now you're talking of miscreants who have come across the border from somewhere to come in, and they are having apprehended. If you had told me that those people emerged from Kumasi, from Takrady, from Accra, known clerics in Accra, known clerics in Kumasi, known clerics in Wa, known clerics in Bolgatanga, known clerics in Tema, then I would have agreed with you. But what we are talking of now is neither here nor there.
They are clerics, Islam clerics.
Yes, the Crusaders were Christian clerics.
Okay.
Whether or not
the question is
the Crusaders were Christian clerics.
It's a matter of
therefore
is
Christianity.
Okay.
Yes,
but I mean, will you endorse the Accra initiative to fight terrorism?
Why not? Why not? Terrorism is anti-Islamic. That is why I said that no terrorist can justify what he is doing from the Holy Quran. Islam hasn't got anything to do with terrorism. Why should it be accepted? We must deal a deadly blow to terrorism, and we must do away with terrorism. But it is not possible unless and until we, all of us, come together and decide to do that. And first, before you push out an enemy, me and you and me, before we fight our enemy, make sure you don't make me your enemy and I don't make you my enemy. That way, that enemy will consume both of us.
Interesting points there. And, well, I want to just tie that into the Fulani headsman issue. They are nomads. They find themselves sometimes in our country. But, of course, the international response is they need help. They should not be targeted. Has that come to your table as well? And how concerned are you for this group? Just briefly on that point.
Well, Fulani headsmen, they are a menace. Your right, as is said, ends where my nose starts. You can stretch your arm, but don't let it come. Don't let it come to my nose. Right. The Fulanis have the right to shepherd their cattle. Right. But ask you, do they have the right to let their cattle destroy my farm on which I've labored the whole year, so that at the end of the day, I'm left with nothing? Do they have that right?
Not at all.
They don't. So that's why it's a give and take affair. Fulanis don't have the right. If you are coming into Ghana, and the Ghanaian is magnanimous enough to receive you, there is a lot of land. Make sure, therefore, that your cattle do not stray into anybody's farm where there is empty ground. Grass is there, grown by nature. Feed on it.
But you don't feel they're targeted here in Ghana?
Targeted? What do it depends on. It depends on. They are not targeted. Right. They are not targeted. They create situations where people get exasperated, people get annoyed. For instance, I've told you, the hungry man is an angry man. If I toil the whole of the year to put up my yam farm, right, and in a jiffy, your cattle come to destroy the whole thing, my anger will know no limit. If I catch you, except that I'm lucky, right, to be a God-fearing person and God controls my heart, you can know what will happen. Yeah. That's what is happening. Targeting would mean that Ghana will put up an army and scouting around, where are those Fulanis, let's attack them, so on and so forth. That is not being done in Ghana. Nobody is targeting Fulanis. They are reacting. The communities are reacting to the extremities of the Fulanis within their own localities. Accra here, we live with so many Fulanis. Who is targeting them? If you go to Ahmadiyya Muslim Agric project, right, at Pomaze, near Winneba, in the central region here, we have a dairy farm. We have cattle. Fulanis are there taking care of them. If we are targeting, those are the ones who strangle even right there, and then there are just a few. So who is targeting Fulanis? Right. Nobody is targeting Fulanis. Fulanis are only creating, some Fulanis are creating problems, and people are reacting to those problems. That is not targeting.
Maulvi Bin Salih, I want to round off everything with democracy. You are very much a firm believer in that concept that we have chosen for ourselves as a nation.
Yes. If we cannot go by it, let the whole world know that we are walking out of it.
And we're two years away from the next general elections. You've observed governance structures, landscape, and democratic development issues. What brief statement would you want to make on that? Because I know clearly that in the past, you've played some critical roles in nation building and development.
You see, democracy is something that is nurtured. It grows. And anything that grows goes from stage to stage. And anything that grows, you've got to overcome hurdles. Hurdles will come your way, and you try your level best to overcome them. As you overcome those hurdles, then you are traveling towards the ideal democracy. That is what I can tell my compatriots Ghanaians, that we should, under no circumstances, throw away the democratic path that we have chosen for ourselves. We must make sure that we nurture it, we grow it. There is no democracy in any part of the world today. If you come to think of UK, they worked on it. They had to work on it. What is happening in our country these days? Worse things happened among the British. Worse things happened. But yet, they remain resilient and they overcome those and they travel through and they finally have gotten to where they are now, so that government, prime ministers can be easily changed overnight without any disturbance. As against our country, when we are having elections to elect a president, then the whole country is on fire. I mean, we haven't gotten there yet, but we should not give up. Let us continue, we'll get there. But continue, I don't mean that we should continue doing it the way we do it. We must always go back to our roots. We cannot reinvent the wheel. It is useless.
If we are to go back to the notes, briefly on that, I recall you were part of the VRAC committee?
No, Peace Council.
Okay, yes, the Peace Council,
Peace Council
at the time. And you made recommendations at the time when we're just coming out of the elections as to how we can consolidate our democracy.
Yep.
Are we following that roadmap? And what's your assessment of our performance so far?
I think we are following it. If we were not following it, we would not be seeing some of the dirty things that are coming, that are showing their face in our society. It's because we are following it that we are conscious of the fact that this is wrong, that is wrong. So we certainly are following it.
Right.
We are questioning many things. Today, the Minister of Finance is being questioned by Parliament. Is it not a development? Is it not a walk towards democracy? Is that today, the ruling government members in Parliament, not the opposition,
right,
come out to hold a press conference to say that our president remove our finance minister. Is it not a journey towards democracy?
Should it be removed, by the way?
That is not for me to decide. I don't have whether I want it or not. I can't do anything.
Right.
The game is being played where it belongs. Let us see what the outcome is. If I tell you I want it removed, I can't do anything about it. And if I tell you I don't want it removed, I can't do anything about it. If I were a parliamentarian, I would tell you strongly what I expect to be done.
Right.
Yes.
Anyway,
you are not lost for words.
Let me take your final word to our viewers and our audience out there.
I think I would want to encourage Ghanaians to be each other's keeper. Ghanaians, as Ghanaians, we must know that we need to be grateful to the Almighty Allah. He's done us a lot of good. Small country as we are, but we possess qualities which much larger, affluent countries than us do not have, and then they envy us. Ghanaians must be each other's keeper, must accept each other. Ghana is that one country where you will find a father belonging to this political party and his son, most senior son, child, also belonging to other political party. Right. And yet, they live in the same house and eat on the same dining table. Ghana is that only country where you would find a compound house where Christians are living there and Muslims are also living there. And they do everything together. No misunderstanding. Ghana is one of the only countries in this world you would find a family. Half of the family, they are Christians, and the other half are Christians. But they continue to live together. We should not allow pseudo-religious organizations who are not mindful of the real spirit of religion to come today to whisper unnecessary things into our ears and disturb our society. Some of the things that are coming up now, it's not to say that we were not Ghanaians before. We were Christians and Muslims and living together. How come all of a sudden these things are coming up? Where is it coming from? That is what we must try our level best to detect. It is against our nature as Ghanaians. I've enumerated these things to tell you that it is un-Ghanaian. It's un-Ghanaian for one religious body to condemn the other religious body. It is un-Ghanaian for us not to be tolerant of people belonging to different political persuasions. It is un-Ghanaian for us not to have sympathy for each other. It's un-Ghanaian for us to want to seal the opportunities for all of us to have equal education.
Right.
If we fail to have equal education, you are not free. The country will never develop. the uneducated ones will always pull down those educated ones. Therefore, the field of education must be free. The field of politics must be free. Medical care must be accessible to all. Respect for each other must be order of the day. So Ghanaians, most importantly, we must know that Allah, the Almighty God, has been very, very favorable. He has been really gracious to us. He has been very, very merciful to us. We are not his only creation. Let's ask ourselves why. Probably, our act, we are putting up an act which is in order.
Right.
Don't let us underrate that. If we start thinking that it's because of some qualities in us that we have this, the slap we will receive from behind will be so devastating that you will not even have the presence of mind to say whether you are a Christian or a Muslim. God forbid.
Alhaji Maulvi Bin Salih, thank you for talking to JoyNews.
You are welcome. You are welcome.
Thank you.
And you are always welcome.
Thank you.